Yes, because I mean, what's there to do, right? While we're here, locked in this lockdown. Hello, Internet. I'm here with my friend Marc, and he, as you can see, is a very happy human, and you will love him. So, hi, Marc. How are you doing?
I am doing well because we're having this conversation. I've been looking forward to this.
Okay, great. Can you remind me how we met?
So I'd say we met twice.
Okay.
The first was in LA, and the second time was in New York.
Okay.
So the LA meeting, actually, no, sorry, not LA. I believe it was San Francisco.
San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah. You said you did remember. So I remember there was like this outdoor meetup for a personal development group that we were a part of. And I remember you taking a bunch of pictures there. And I'd heard about you online, I'd seen some of your posts and stuff, and I already had like this healthy respect. And I was like, oh my God, I'm meeting like the Katya, you know? And so it was awesome and fun. And then we re-met again when you moved from the West Coast to New York. And again, it was now at a meetup that was hosted by a mutual friend of ours. I think it was Selena Sue's meetup. And we got to like have much more of like an extended catch up, and we spoke about you moving to New York, why you made the move and everything like that. So those are like two.
Yeah. Now that you've jogged my memory, I actually do remember that one. And in San Francisco it was the bigger meetup with Ramit. Okay. Yeah, that's all awesome. So how, I know you've been working with Ramit a little bit, and then now what do you do now?
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing I was doing while I was with Ramit. So before I started working with Ramit, and just for context, there was an accelerator program for online startups, online businesses. I was one of 3 lead coaches for the program, and that's what I did for years. But how I even got into that was I was already doing business consulting and coaching for online business and entrepreneurs. And so while I had that position, I just continued to do my private consulting and coaching because I didn't want to lose the skills that got me to where it was. And so I just continued doing that, and I've been refining my frameworks and stuff since then too.
And I was just stalking you a little bit. I was reading your website, and first of all, I love all of the calls to action that you have, which let me actually write it down. Get into it. Tell me all the things. I was like, okay, this is so him. This is so you, seriously. So anyway, and then I saw that picture of you with Jay Abraham in Abraham's house. How did this happen?
Gosh, the story probably goes back to almost like 2015 or 2016.
Oh, wow.
The first time and so I heard about Jay Abraham even from me because I almost spilled something on my desk. I got too excited apparently talking about this.
Because Jay Abraham. Jay Abraham. First of all, maybe you should tell a little bit who he is and who he mentors.
Okay, so Jay Abraham at the time was known as the $9.7 billion man. And I was like, oh my God, who is this like cocky person, you know? And turns out that's the revenue that he's generated for his clients through consulting work. And he mentors folks like Tony Robbins, Damon John, you know, who's known through Shark Tank. And then also one of my mentors, Ramit Sethi. And so I had the opportunity to meet Jay Abraham at this conference that was called Titans of Direct Response.
Mhm.
And him, many other business leaders, and so were there. And after I got to ask him a question while he was on stage in this extensive panel, this who's who of everybody in the direct response copywriting world, uh, and he thanked me for the question, and he then spent around like 5 to 6 minutes answering it, and it was a
Wow.
amazing treatise, if that's how you pronounce it, on his strategy of preeminence. And then at lunch, we got a chance to meet each other, and I got to just share the lunch table with him,
That's
sit down and
awesome.
just jam. And I was just like, oh my god, this is amazing. This is like dream come true. And so flash forward several years. And since then, I continued doing all my consulting work and stuff. And one of my private clients actually asked me if I wanted to go meet Jay Abraham and get a
No.
mastermind with him at
What
his
kind of
house.
question is this?
I know, right? It's like, this is a terrible idea. I was like, oh my God, yes. And they asked, because they don't want anyone to know that Jay Abraham is their secret weapon. Also, myself as well. And
Mm.
so can't say who the person is, but we went there together because when you're gonna meet someone like Jay Abraham, it's almost like too much to do it by yourself. You want to talk to someone to be able to just process
Yeah,
everything that he's gonna be
digest. Yeah.
sharing with you.
Yeah.
And so went there. It was a 3-day event, and at his home, and also sworn to secrecy on where that is.
Of course. Yes.
And everything, and it was a very small intimate gathering of maybe somewhere between like 8 to 12 of us,
That's awesome.
for 3 days all day. And it really was,
Yeah.
that's how that happened.
And that's so cool. And so since then, your goal has been to become Jay Abraham for the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What does that mean?
So I told him at the towards unlike the day 3, because he and a couple other people were very curious about my note-taking style, and I had a lot of questions about it because I have actually I'll show you.
Yeah, show me. Show us.
So when I'm at a conference or event like that, this is my notebook.
Oh, what? How is this 10 pounds?
It's kind
What's
of
the
close to it,
size of
actually.
it? What's the size? Is it like 11 by 17?
This is actually, I think you got the dimensions right. It is like 11 by 17, if not maybe a bit bigger.
Oh, wow, I just learned something about you. You're crazy.
Yes, yeah. It's not the first time I've been described as like a mad scientist. And
Okay.
so I would be taking notes.
Oh, wow.
Just freeform.
Oh, wow.
It's unruled lines. And I would do a mixture of drawing, mind mapping, and everything, just to be able to like get all the information, because I'm always wanting to see the big picture and how everything connects to each other. But I definitely don't take notes. I rarely take notes in like a linear way, because that's just the way that my mind works. And so Jay was interested in that, and a bunch of other people and stuff like that. And so it was the only way to keep up with the volume of information that he was sharing. And even then, I can't say that I got it all, but again, that was an unforgettable experience that I'd say transformative for my business and life.
So this note taking, this system that you have, is this what you, this is how you get the information and process it for your clients? Is this your
myself
secret sauce? No?
Part of it. I would say if I think, did I put this on the website? Actually, yeah. So one of the things that I mentioned on the website is I'm an environmental science researcher turned.
Right. Yeah, you did put it on the website. Yeah.
And my mind operates in, I guess you could say, always trying to connect all of the dots, always trying to make sense of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the scientific method is one of the secret sauces, I'd
Okay.
say. And for every single bit of information that I collect, I'm always trying to see where it fits into this big literature review, if you will, of the entire body of work that I've ever paid attention to. Everything is always connected to something, and I'm always trying to slot it into an existing system. Um, and that's what this is for, so that I can
Wow.
connect it back to the small picture, big picture. And one of the things that is important, that's drilled into you when you're doing research, you must know where everything came from,
Mm.
always.
Mm.
And your work is always built on work that came before it. And you
Yes.
should always be able to reference and cite where the material came from and what were the additions that you made, what were the modifications that you made, so that if others wanted to follow in your footsteps, they would be able to also replicate those steps, because science.
Right.
And so that causes me to be very just obsessive with knowing where
Where
that stuff.
things are. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. This is so cool. I have so many questions about this, but maybe some other time. We'll
Sure.
make another full episode about this. Um, so as a consultant or as a mentor to your clients, you run your agency from the comfort of your home, right?
Yes.
Except for those times when you need to go and MC for Ramit at the Forefront conference, or um, organize one of those amazing events that I personally have been to. So you know what it's like to be working remotely, I mean, from home. But with the current situation, with this intensity of the pandemic, how has it affected you? How has it affected your routines? Maybe are you noticing anything about the clients? Do you feel the Zoom fatigue that everyone is now talking about? How are you handling this?
Thank you. It's such a thoughtful question, not just for us, but everybody else listening in. So, thank you for that. It We're now into, I guess you could say, really like month 2 of the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic here in the United States, and we're not, we haven't flattened the curve yet. Numbers are still going up, but about a month ago, when everything really, there was an inflection point
Mm,
of lockdown starting to happen all across the country. I think that was like peak anxiety for everybody, and myself included. It disrupted maybe all of my routines. It
mm,
was just, I had like 1 to 2. It wasn't just me. I'd spoken to another mutual friend of ours, Primage, and many people were just like, "Man, I feel like I lost a month of
yes.
just, just trying to resettle and figure out and get back into things."
Yeah.
Um, for me, personal routines. I've worked remotely for years and years and years, and I intentionally designed routines that would get me out of the house so
Right.
that I could have a balance between being inside and outside physical activity. As you already know, I dance, tango,
Tango.
salsa.
Yes.
I miss it. And strength training in the gym, and just also being outside, hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
And overnight, um, all the gyms across the country closed down. So then that was gone. And then around the same time, all dancing shut down because again, COVID-19. Um, and it was isolating
Yeah.
because I didn't realize just how much I would miss seeing my friends in person,
Yes.
and that just being a nice grounding part of my life. And it only after like month 1, I reconnected with a lot of my friends in different countries online and started to just really focus on, okay, this is the new normal. How do I adjust? How do we adjust? How do we figure it out? And I've finally felt like I've gotten back into a groove of being able to be productive. But all in all, I'd say the pandemic has forced me and others to level up in ways that I just could not have foreseen. And so in a counterintuitive way, there's some aspects of it that I'm actually thankful for.
Can you share a little bit?
Yeah.
What you're thankful for? What are your silver linings?
It stripped away all distractions.
Yeah.
It's and I didn't realize that some of these things, even though they were grounding forces in my life, I'd gotten into this routine and I wasn't reflecting on whether or not these things were truly taking me towards where I want to be in life. And one of the things that one concrete thing that this started was, for the first time in my life, I've started journaling every single day. Just there's never a day I don't
it just came to you, or somebody remind you of that? Because I remember we were WhatsApping like a week or so ago, and you said you were on day 22, I think. So did somebody remind you, or you just like, I need to write some stuff down? How did that happen? So
I was part of a writing accountability group. And there was this tracker, because one of the things that, as you know, I was getting my website, I'm developing all these frameworks and stuff, and it's like, okay, I need to get these thoughts out of my head. And okay, it's time to write. I'd also, I work with high-end coaches, on direct response copywriting, strategy, and everything like that. And it was all very helpful. And
excuse me.
I like the dramatic sound effect there. Let's see, it was all very boom. Yeah.
Yes. We're getting somewhere. Come on.
But I then realized that beyond the strategy, I now knew what I needed to do, and it was time to act. And particularly, a lot of that came down to writing. And when I looked at my writing in the tracker, on one day, 2 other friends in there had written like 2,000 words and 3,000 words. Yeah. And then I looked at mine, and it said like 500. I was like, and that took me like hours to like do. And I was just like, what the hell is going on? and it's like, I couldn't run from it. I couldn't hide. And then like the next day, their numbers were again like 2,000, 3,000. And then mine was like 0. I'm like, what the hell happened? I don't even, and I got so frustrated. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm just going to, it doesn't matter what I write about. It doesn't matter whether it's business or life. I am just going to dedicate this day to writing. And the thing that I want to give myself evidence, I want to change a script that I felt like I had about myself, which was, I'm not a fast writer. I'm a slow and precise writer. It's like, I'm a careful, and that's the story I'd be telling myself. And I'm like, but what if it doesn't have to be like that? What if I could be fast and good? How would I get there? And I was like, okay, well, I don't feel certain about that right now. The only way to create certainty is to create evidence. Yes. And so how can I gift myself that evidence? I have to do it. And so I have to just let go of the past and then just try to I don't care if I make mistakes. I turn off the spell checker, and day one of that, I then just decided, all right, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it day after day. And I just want to not break the chain, just keep going. And day one, I wrote 3,000 plus words.
What?
But it took me like hours to do it. And I was like, this was stressful, but I got it done. Now, the next day, can I get it done in less time? And I then went from writing like 3,000 plus words over like 4 hours to then getting it done in like 2 hours. And then I was like, can I do it even faster next time? And then I was like, okay, I want to create consistency. I want to sit down at the same place to write. I want to get there as quickly as possible. And I just want to, and I just get these words out. And it doesn't matter if I open my eyes, close my eyes, whatever. It doesn't matter what comes into I just have to keep writing.
Right.
And then I was able to get around 2,000, 3,000 words done in about like an hour.
Right on.
That, yes. I see what you did there. That was nice.
I learned from somebody.
Oh, you flattered me. And I just kept at it. And I haven't skipped a day since. I'm now
That's
up to day 37 or so.
Oh, now. Wow. Yeah. So it's been 12, 15 days, 2 weeks ago we talked on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
But, and I remember you also said that it brought you clarity and it makes you focused.
Yes.
And you said that you're writing not only about business, but about everything, right? So I do journal also. In fact, yesterday I was stuck. Actually, not just yesterday. For the past few days, I was stuck on this one thing that I need to be doing. And finally, yesterday, I was like, okay, this is driving me crazy. I don't know why this is happening. So I sat down and I journaled on that. And I was like, why is this happening? Like, and so all of those fears, all of those scripts, all of those, it's just nonsense. It's just like came out and it's like, okay, now I know what to do. So I totally get that idea of journaling, that, you know, it helps you with, you know, get that clarity and stay focused on what is really important. And I remember I also, and this is a controversial question, I'm getting to it. I remember I also asked you if part of the journaling for you are affirmations, or some people call them also empowering statements. And you said, no, not my thing. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. So I'd tried, this probably like years ago, like affirming statements and like, you know, writing out my goals and all that sort of stuff before. And I found that in the past, I didn't feel connected to it. And so it was just this intellectual concept. And without feeling, there is no meaning.
Right.
And so I'd see it, I'd do it, and then poof, gone from short-term memory, and I didn't seem to experience any effect on my life. And then through this journaling experience, I found that I started to have this, how to put it, meditative experience.
Writing is a meditative experience.
100%. Yeah. I haven't always seen it that way. But then with this sprint, this writing sprint, it now happens every single time I sit down to do it. And then I could start to predict exactly how long it would take for me to actually hit it. And then from noticing how long it would take, I could then start to trigger it at a moment's notice whenever I wanted, because I just became so familiar with it. And I could just, okay, this is the thing this is the experience I'm wanting. This is the awareness that I'm wanting. And then to just flip the switch and turn it on.
That's so cool.
Yes.
So you said, so now it sort of became this meditative experience for you. You can predict and all of those things. But did it change your mind, like going back to that affirmations piece? Did it change your mind from not sort of feeling the statement to now? Do you feel, if you come across a statement or something in what you're writing, does it make you, do you convert it in some way into an affirmation or a goal or something like that?
To, I don't know if affirmation is quite the word.
Okay.
And to describe it, some may see it as an affirmation. But I think the thing for me that was missing was that it's about having a conversation with myself.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
And when I'd encountered the concept of affirmations and stuff, that component wasn't mentioned, or maybe I didn't recognize it or see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in much the same way that I might make a statement or share something with you, a friend, a family member, and there would be emotional meaning behind it that would just flow out naturally. I didn't think of doing an affirmation or making a statement as having a conversation with myself, and then recognizing myself as this whole other person that I can have emotional responses to, beyond just like the intellectual understanding of the thing. And so through this experience, though, it being a mindful experience, and mindfulness just being aware of everything that's happening in your environment through all of your senses, all five senses at the same time, without any distraction or any judgment or anything of it, just observing.
Right.
And then to borrow from concepts of Buddhism and describing the concept of the self, one way that I've heard it described that I found to be infinitely valuable and 100% reliable is the self can be thought of in two parts. You have the observer that notices everything through all the five senses, and then the chooser, the part of yourself where you can now intentionally make a decision and act upon it. And so through this meditative experience, I would be observing myself. And if I did it long enough, I would then go from observation to both choice, intention, and have those simultaneously at the same time, being aware of the full experience, and then also choosing, and also being able to now have a full-fledged conversation with myself, and then taking it from just an intellectual conversation to also an emotional conversation as well.
Yeah.
And so once I was in that state of flow, conscious awareness, and people describe it as being aware of the flow state as you're in it, and also having that emotional experience of it, then when I made a statement or I was in conversation with myself and I would share maybe an affirming statement, I could then feel it in response to myself.
Yeah. And it's funny. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and so when that happened, and then when it would happen on a consistent basis, is when I would have not just self-compassion, but then also direction, and then setting goals and stuff now had an emotional component to it, and so then had meaning and fulfillment, and then giving myself also feedback loops on this like daily cycle where I would then appreciate the things that I did and stuff as well. That's when it became infinitely valuable.
Yeah. The reason I wanted to talk to you about this affirmations was because I also personally, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I just could, like, I don't understand what it is. Like when I would read someone else's affirmation, or like there are many people online who keep posting them, and it's like I also, like you said, I didn't have emotional connection to it, right? And then I read this book.
Ooh.
It's Maximum Achievement by Brian Tracy.
Oh, Brian Tracy. Good.
Yes. And so he basically talks about the same thing, only their goals. So Brian Tracy is known for his goal setting system. And I loved how he explained that, because basically, and he talks about this exercise of mind storming, right? Let's say you have a question in your mind. How can I get to, I don't know, 1 million in a year or something like that? And then you just sort of, to borrow from Ramit, you do the straight jacket technique, right? You sit down and you keep answering that question. And he talks about, maybe the first 10, 15 answers would be just like some sort of rubbish. But then after that, you get to the gold, right? And the trick is also, he talks about this 3P formula. So it has to be positive, personal, and in present tense. Because apparently our subconscious cannot process information when it's in a negative statement, or that it's like I am going to, like it has to be in the present tense, right? So let's say, and he also talks about how it's helpful to have a deadline for your brain to start working on that. So he would say, I have, I don't know, 15 new business partners by XYZ date, right? And so in that sense, it sort of becomes a command for your brain, for your subconscious to start working on it. And you may forget about it, you may forget that you actually said that, but then let's say, fast forward, I don't know how many days or months or whatever, that when this thing actually happens, you're like, whoa. And it happened to me, because I remember I was like doing some journaling based on his exercises, and I remember writing down, I want to do, I complete, Clifton Strengths coaching by XYZ date. I don't remember like my positive statement about being in London, because I wanted to go there. And then fast forward a few months, I am in London doing the coaching. And I was like, what? So anyway, so when I read that book and I listened, he also has like an audio, he has the system, audio recordings. Then I started believing it. And I was like, okay, so now I know what they are, and because it's so personal to me, right? And because I can get emotionally attached to it in a good way, then yes, like these are affirmations that I can say to myself, and see what happens, and hopefully, they will happen, because they do actually. And another thing that I was also thinking about, you probably read The Charisma Myth by Olivia. Yes. Remember how she talks about responsibility transfer?
Yes. You'll have to refresh. It's been a couple years since I read it, but I remember hearing the concept, but not the exact meaning.
So that one also, so responsibility transfer, I think she's talking about this in the context where, let's say I think the example that she gives, maybe when she herself needed to go on stage to give a very important talk, and she was driven by anxiety or something like that. And so, and then she introduced this concept of responsibility transfer, basically saying, like, imagining that this weight is being lifted off your shoulders onto whatever entity shoulders. And so you basically say to yourself, now it's taken care of. And so in that sense, it's, there's a similar affirmation that I borrowed from somebody that I love to actually say to myself now is, especially during this crazy times, is like, I'm supported by the universe, right? So it's like, it's not my responsibility to figure out how things are going to work out, but they will work out because the universe is on my side. And I looked at that chapter again in her book, and what's interesting, when she was talking about this concept, she was talking about how many leaders, when they get especially stressed out in the times of uncertainty, which is exactly where we are now. And I thought that is such a cool thing to remind everyone of right now, the responsibility transfer.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
What it makes me think of is I can't claim to be an expert on spirituality, religion, or any religion or anything like that, but my mother would she quote the Serenity Prayer, and essentially the core thesis of it is, we hope to have the will and ability to see what's within our control and what's not within our control, and to let go of the things that are outside of our control. And so that's what it makes me think of. And that is actually a bigger conversation, essentially, on boundaries.
Yeah.
And with these uncertain times, what I think it's caused us all to do is to re-examine our boundaries, and to get super clear on what's within our control, what's not outside of control. Because if we focus too much on what's outside of our control, outside of our boundaries, even though they kind of have an impact on us, we'll go crazy because we have no control over it.
Right. Yeah.
And it will just spike anxiety for us, which affects our ability to live and be well in the world. So,
yeah, that's what I was actually telling one of my friends recently. I just surrendered. I surrendered to the universe or whoever. I've never been or consider myself a spiritual person. But with the recent, readings that I've been doing and things like that, and like I said, I love that affirmation. I'm supported by the universe. I guess I'm getting to becoming a spiritual person. But basically, yes, I surrendered, in terms of, I don't want to be constantly driven by anxiety, whether I will get sick or, whether I will survive if I get sick, and, where's money coming from, all of those different things. Like, no, I choose to not, well, obviously I pay attention to the news, I stay informed, but I choose not to go into that spiral of doom. And I choose to, keep myself busy. By the way, one of my silver linings from this pandemic is the creativity. It's like all of a sudden, I sit down, I meditate. You probably know that I've been meditating for many years. So I sit down and meditate, and my brain just comes up with all of those different things. And this is what I choose to be doing. So I surrendered. I don't know when it's gonna end. I don't know how it's gonna end. But like you said, it's out of our control, unfortunately, at this point. And I just choose to be supported by the universe.
My mind is turning some of those statements into language that makes it visual for me. And the image that came to mind was a closed fist that's now open.
That's so interesting. That's such a powerful, and that's amazing.
With that open hand, you can both give and receive.
Yes.
And others can give and receive from you. And so that, to me, kind of turns it into almost like this visual metaphor
Mm.
for what you're describing happening in your life right now. And I've been finding that it's the same for me. It's as there's more uncertainty in my external environment, I then have a desire to create more certainty over the thing that I only have control over, which is my own personal environment,
Yeah.
and particularly what's happening in my own body. And now every exercise session that I do, whether it's riding a bicycle or walking or something like that, it's turning into a moving meditation where I then check in with myself and, I didn't realize I had unnecessary tension in my body, and
Mm.
just almost in a way becoming more relaxed and more efficient in like every single moment of life.
Mm. That's beautiful. And so what about dancing? Do you dance when you cook? What do you do?
There is no dancing happening
Oh.
because I mean part of the thing that one of the reasons I even like got into social dancing was, it's social. I'd never
Mm-hmm.
done like partner dances like
Mm-hmm.
before that, and so I still have movement practices that I do, but they tend to be more along the lines of like I might be running or walking,
Mm.
and biking or something like that, while listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of dance, I enjoy it the most when I have a partner.
Yeah, I hear you.
So we're
That,
we're all crossing our fingers to one day beyond
yes.
COVID-19 when dancing can happen
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a beautiful note to end our wonderful. I so enjoyed it so much, our
Likewise.
conversation. Thank you so much for your time,
Thank you.
and I hope everyone has enjoyed our conversation as we did. And if you like this, I have many more friends like Marc. Um, that with whom I have very interesting deep conversations. So if you like it, please subscribe. There's a button somewhere there, and I'll see you next time really soon. Stay safe, everyone.